What's up, everybody? This is Farmer Brooks from North Mountain Pastures. Today we're going to go over preparing your turkey for Thanksgiving dinner. So in order to execute our brine properly, there's 3 tips that I like to keep in mind. The first one is the most important. So half a cup of salt per gallon of water. Gives us kind of a weaker brine, but if you go much higher than that, you start getting a little bit too salty. So I like to use these Cambros. They're pretty cheap. You can get these on Amazon. So 4 quarts is a gallon. Fill up 1 gallon, dump it in, half a cup scoop of salt, dump that in. Sometimes it helps for your salt to dissolve if it's a little bit warmer water to start, but always make sure you chill it once you're putting that turkey in so we're not bringing that temperature up. The second thing is when I'm doing herbs and spices, I am typically going to make a tea out of my herbs and spices and then chill the tea and pour that into my brine. You can grind or even throw in whole spices into the brine bucket. Just kind of pour them in there and see what happens. It works a little better if there's bourbon or something like that to kind of pull the flavor and the oils out of the spices, but I found that I get a lot more of the actual flavor into the bird when I make a tea and put that into the brine. And the last thing is length of time. So this is a fairly high salt brine. This is going to keep away any spoilage bacteria, any pathogenic bacteria, by nature of it being salt. But that said, we want to, for food safety reasons, keep this in a cool area if we can. So if you have a fridge or a walk-in where you can keep it, that's perfect. Typically it's in November. It's, you can put it outside on the deck, put it in a garage. And if you are having any issues where it's getting really warm, it's unseasonably warm, just get some ice each day. And it's better if you have like bigger chunks of ice. Drop that in, just add a little bit of salt. So for each chunk of ice you throw in there, add a couple tablespoons of salt just to even out the amount of water you're putting in. But we do want to keep it fairly cool. We've got our brine mixed up and we've got our spice tea made. We're going to add any other liquids to our brine. We're going to add our spice tea back into the brine and then the whole bird goes in. So I've got some cider vinegar here, or cider, hard cider. So we're pouring the hard cider in, and we added a little bit of extra salt to compensate for the water that's going in with that. You could do wine, like I said, champagne, bourbon, whatever you're interested in. We've got our chilled spiced tea, and it's fine if you go whole spices in there. It's not a big deal. Just make sure you pull them off before you roast your turkey. And then we're going right in with our turkey, all the way in. If you don't have access to a 5-gallon food grade bucket, you want to just use your turkey bag that the turkey came in as a bucket liner. So just stick it down in, and put it over the top, and then mix your brine up, put it in the bag, because you don't want to use a non-food grade bucket. If you can find a food grade bucket, go for that. They're probably 15 bucks on Amazon. You can find them at any food processor. Okay, so we're going to move on to dry brining the bird or dry rubbing the bird, which is my favorite way to do a turkey. Principles are the same. We're getting some salt into the bird. We're breaking down some of the muscle tissue. We're breaking down the cell walls, so that we're actually pulling moisture out. In the brine, we pull moisture into the bird, but then more moisture cooks out of it. So Cooks Illustrated did an article on the difference between a dry salt and a brine, and the brine actually pulls more weight into the bird, but then more goes out, and so the end result was that the dry salted bird actually ended up tasting juicier. So it's my preferred method. I also think it's easier. Things that we need for it, obviously we need our bird, we need a bag for the salt to go into, we need a scale so we can weigh everything, we need something to mix our salt and any spices. I just use salt and raw sugar, Rapadura, Sucanat, whatever you use, and then we'll get it going. Alright, so step 1 is my assistant and I are going to weigh our bird here. And we're at 4382. So 4382 grams, we'll say we're at 4,400 grams, which is about 4.5 kilos. I do this in metric because it's easy, and we should all be using the metric system. So 4,400 grams, right? So 1% of 4,400 is 44. We're just moving the decimal. Very basic math, don't be afraid. 1.5% is going to be 50 times more, or 50% more, sorry, 50% more. So 66 grams of salt, 1.5% by weight of salt is going on this bird. For the sugar, I like to go about half. It depends on how much sweetness you like in the bird. You can go 1-to-1 with your salt and your sugar. So I'm gonna go 66 grams of salt and 33-ish grams of sugar on my bird. Okay, so that we don't have to do any extra math here, we're gonna tare to our container. So you can see I hit the tare button there. And now we're gonna go 66 grams of salt. And again, we're using our pink Himalayan salt just because that's what we prefer, but Celtic sea salt will be good. Any whole mineral sea salt is what I recommend. I wouldn't use iodized salt just because I don't like it. So we're at 68, that's totally fine. We're gonna tare it again. I mean, you could just keep adding and figure out the numbers, but we're gonna go up to about 35 with the sugar now. So we're going to add this sugar until we are right around 35. And again here, you don't have to go crazy. These are grams, so this is very precise. So if you go a little bit over, it's just going to be a little bit sweeter. No big deal. So now we've got our 66 grams of salt and 35 grams of sugar. We're going to mix these up, and that sort of becomes what we want to call our cure or our dry rub, and that's going to go on the bird next. The final step for the dry salt is get this bird covered with our cure or with our dry rub and get it in the bag. So I like to do the whole thing in the bag just so we're not losing anything. So I set the turkey in here. I'm gonna go, my first little bit is gonna go inside, rub it on the inside of the bird. That's gonna get up into the breast. We're gonna go down here into the neck, and that's gonna get the top of the breast. And then we're just gonna keep going. And the way I suggest it for people who haven't done this before is to cover the whole bird with half of the mix and then use the rest of it. Hold on a second. So keep rubbing this in. We're going to go wings, legs, thighs, everything. The whole bird. Get it all nice and covered. And you can see I'm getting all this cure on the whole bird and in the bag. Once we've got most of it in there, we're going to put the rest of it down in. I'm going to get some in there too. Alright, my assistant's going to help me continue salting the breast. This is very necessary for getting a very tender breast. And then we're going to close it up. And if you want to get that final mix going, you can even shake it around. Get that cure all mixed around. Alright, there's your turkey, dry salted. Just slide that into, you can close this up with the twist tie, slide that into the fridge until you're ready to roast it.